today we're going to review the Svord Peasant Knife, a folding knife that was made by a guy called B.W. Baker, designed by him, based on a 400-year-old design of Bohemian knife. Now, I've got two versions of it here. I've got straight out the factory, and the second version is one that I've added a few custom touches to, which I feel are, if not essential, at least sort of fairly necessary to the knife. Now, I'll show you some of the features of this knife. First of all, it's a one-hand opening knife, so that's a great feature as far as I'm concerned in a folding knife, because you haven't got to drop everything to use two hands to open it. As you can see, the knife itself has a long spine and just literally pivots around a screw that sits either end of the knife, that also serves the function of actually putting how much tension there is in the blade. Now, like I say, one of the advantages of having this knife is that it is one-hand opening, but the other advantage that gives you, as you've noticed, it means I can also open it with gloves on and things like that in the winter. Unlike a few of the lower end sort of folding knives, you haven't got to fiddle about trying to get the blade out with a tiny little fingernail notch. And you also don't particularly get a problem with the knife jamming in. I'm sure, as those of you that own Opinels know, that once the handle starts to soak up a bit of moisture, even just in the atmosphere, they tighten up and they're a nightmare to get open. You've got to smack them on something just to get the blade loose. So that doesn't suffer from this problem. Another huge feature, I think, of this knife is the fact that right here it has a tiny little pin. Now, what that pin does is it just stops just prior to the blade against the spine of the knife. So that essentially stops the knife coming through the other side. Now, what that means is there's absolutely no contact on the edge of the blade, the business end of the knife. So you don't get the issue that you get with some folders that will actually touch the edge and start to blunt it as you use it. So that's another huge plus. Like I was saying earlier, there's these two adjustable screws. What they do is they allow you to adjust the tension on the knife at both ends, top and bottom. So you can twiddle it till you've got exactly the right tension that you need, so that it's tight enough that it doesn't fall open, but at the same time easy enough to pull open with the blade that way. This one's a little bit stiff at the top. It's not actually my knife, so it's tensioned by somebody else. Now, what I'll do in a minute is I'll go through some of the features that I think maybe could do with a bit of adjustment from factory. However, saying that, this knife retails at the moment, 2010, this retails at £17 or thereabouts, so it's not a hugely expensive knife. So where it suffers is in the final finish, effectively, I feel. Okay, I'm going to talk now about some of the basic changes that I've made to this knife from the shop bought version. This varnish over the shop bought one wasn't a big hit with me. Neither was the bevel running round, which just seemed a little bit crudely done. So I stripped back the varnish with a bit of acetone, or you can use nail polish remover. Came off in a matter of minutes with a solvent like that. And a bit of tissue, just wipes over the handle. Then essentially what I did then was break the knife down into its component parts, dismantle it completely, take the blade out, then re-bolt it together. I then sanded the bevel down and sanded the edge round as well to make it much smoother and much more even. By bolting the two halves together, you get a perfectly even match with the two handle scales. The next change that I made was then I coated it in oil. So rather than re-varnish it, I coated it in linseed oil, but you could just as easily use cooking oil or beeswax or any finish you wanted, really. The next and probably the most important change that I made was to the bevel at the edge of the knife. Now, as it comes, generally speaking, the grind isn't very even. It tends to be more one side than it is the other side. What this essentially does is gives you a sort of lopsided grind to your blade. So you don't want that. You want the blade to be evenly evenly spaced either side, so that the cutting edge is directly down the centre of the spine. So what I essentially did was reground the edge of the blade to give me a much finer edge and to also even that edge up. But what I've done is given it a slight convex grind, so it comes in a nice smooth curve until it reaches the edge. Now, I found the edge retention on these knives to be very good. They're obviously very high quality steel, which is, you know, that is the business end of your knife after all. So the only real issue, apart from the grind of the blade, which is quite a big issue on a knife really, it was cosmetic, simple as that. So it's not really a criticism of the knife. I'd like to see a slightly better grind on the knife coming from the factory. There's no reason really why they couldn't be ground better, which would hugely improve the performance of the knife and mean that people don't have to grind it themselves when they get home. So that was a big feature. These also come much cheaper, in about £12 if you buy them with the plastic handle. Of course, you're not going to have the same issues with a plastic handle, although for aesthetic reasons I preferred the wood. So they're not, you can't expect wonders for that sort of price. You know, it is excellent value, however much work you actually spend on it yourself. We'll put all the specific specs of size and weight and everything else at the end of the video, so that you can peruse them at your leisure. But that's it really, the Svord Peasant Knife. In my opinion, once you've done a few customisations to it, it's one of the best knives I own. It's one of my absolute favourites. So there you go, Svord Peasant Knife.